Well, we finally made it to Main Street, USA. Almost literally, it's the sometimes vlog, yeah! It's a vlog that happens sometimes. Welcome to Chillicothe, Missouri. Not Chillicothe, Missouri, which is how I want to pronounce it, but everything in Missouri is pronounced a little bit weird. A couple of things strike you right away about Chillicothe. Number one is that a lot of the architecture looks like Main Street, USA and Disneyland, and that's not really a coincidence. Number two is that it's raining, but number three is that there's a lot of art here. Everywhere I turn in Chillicothe, there's a mural. One after another, after another, after another. They all seem to have something to do with the town's history, so this is a place that's very in touch with its roots and its artistic side. Look, they all have these little plaques created from an original painting by blah blah blah, Milwaukee Depot demolished. It's all about the town's history. Look at all this stuff. This is crazy. Who painted all this? Who painted you, huh? Was it an artist? It was. In Chillicothe, we love hats. And we love to fiddle. I'm just a grumpy man. Hello. The reason Chillicothe looks like Main Street, USA at Disneyland is because it almost is. This is basically just a few towns over from Marceline, Missouri, the boyhood hometown of Walt Disney, which inspired the idea behind Main Street, USA. Now, if you've seen my video about Marceline, Missouri before, you might have thought to yourself, geez, the real Marceline, Main Street, Walt Disney's real boyhood hometown, doesn't look much like Main Street, USA. Marceline has been pretty depopulated over the years and gotten smaller and smaller and smaller, and so a lot of its old-timey architecture wasn't really preserved, at least the elaborate parts of the storefronts and stuff. So Marceline looks a lot more plain today than it did in Walt's time. Also, Main Street, USA was inspired by a lot of other artists and contributors' hometowns, and not just Marceline. So that made me always think like, okay, Walt Disney's boyhood hometown inspired the way of living of Main Street, but not necessarily the look. Until you come to all the other towns like this surrounding Marceline and you realize, oh, it really did look like that. Oh, look at this. Look at this, it's a little tiny library. You can take a book or return a book, and it's all on the honor system. Look what we could check out. We could check out Yolanda's Genius. I bet that's a heck of a read right there. And as you can see from some of the buildings in Chillicothe, which are from the exact same time period and the exact same place, I think even maybe the same county, rural Missouri did in fact look like Main Street, USA. As cool as all that stuff is, that is not the reason I'm standing on the side of the road on a really kind of cold, rainy, wet day in Chillicothe, Missouri. I'm here standing on the side of the road in the cold of the rain showing you all the murals and talking about Chillicothe, Missouri, because it's also the home of something completely different than a Main Street lookalike. This place is the home of sliced bread. Have you ever heard that expression, that old figure of speech, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread? Well, they don't use that expression in Chillicothe because this is literally the place where sliced bread was invented. That sounds ridiculous. That sounds crazy. The first time I pulled off the highway here and saw the little plaque that says that, I was like, what? You gotta be kidding me. But it turns out it's completely true. Inside of this very building on July 7th, 1928, a baker by the name of Frank Bench and his inventor friend Otto Rowetter watched as something insane happened. They said it couldn't be done. They said they were crazy. But in this building, their machine sliced bread. It's something that we all take completely for granted these days, and something I honestly never in my life would have ever probably thought about. Somebody had to invent a bread slicer. Somebody invented sliced bread. Until July 7th, 1928, everybody had to buy loaves of bread or bake loaves of bread and then cut them up by hand. I don't know if you guys have ever actually tried to bake your own bread. I have. If you make a loaf of bread and then try to cut it with a knife, it's really hard. Before I found out I couldn't eat gluten, I remember trying to bake my own bread to save money and trying to cut it up into even slices, and they're all falling apart and there'd be like weird holes in the middle. But even when I got a good loaf, try taking like a submarine sandwich loaf or a loaf of French bread and cutting it into slices. It's like impossible. Well, apparently these two dudes made a 5-foot long and 4-foot high machine to do the trick, and this building was its original home. If you're like me, you were wondering, is the machine still in the building? But it turns out that no, it's not. As a matter of fact, the original machine does not exist at all anymore. Apparently, they used it for so long that it actually completely fell apart. According to this handy informational sign, though, the second machine they made is part of the Smithsonian Institution's collection. So apparently, a slice of history is preserved. If you think about it, everybody everywhere uses something that was invented in Chillicothe, Missouri. That's why they can't use that old expression here, because nothing here is the greatest thing since sliced bread. This is the greatest thing that's ever happened here. It's an unusual part of history, but it's legit history right here. I was just thinking it's weird because we're only a couple of blocks away from the rest of the downtown, and there's not one mural here. The whole rest of the town is covered in them, including that huge Home of Sliced Bread mural down there. But the actual Home of Sliced Bread has nothing. Actually, you know what? There's no sliced bread in there. So the actual home of sliced bread in this town is the Piggly Wiggly and the Walmart. A couple other things over here. Look at these brick streets. Under the asphalt in a lot of these old towns is brick paving like this. Not to reference Disneyland even more, but Disneyland Paris, their main street has brick walkways like this and brick roads. I'm wondering if that's how Marceline's streets used to be. They also have their super historic looking train station down here. And also this. Look at this old filling station, old gas station. Now I was just gonna say it looks like some pictures I saw in the Route 66 Museum of an old Phillips 66 station, which by the way is named after Route 66, so tie-in. It has a new slab of concrete, so it's been somewhat restored, which is gonna make some of you wonder if we're still on Route 66. No, we are not. No, we're now getting our kicks on Missouri's Highway 36, also known as the Way of American Genius, because behind us, a town that I couldn't show you because I passed it last night, was the hometown of J.C. Penney, like the guy, not just the store. And then of course we just passed through the home of sliced bread, so that was kind of genius. And then this also passes near to Marceline, Missouri, Walt Disney, and then ends over in Hannibal, Missouri, the boyhood home of Mark Twain, which is where I'm going tonight. But even though Mark Twain is my hero, and I'm on my way to his boyhood hometown, and kind of the purpose of this trip was to get a break from Disney stuff, how can I not stop in Marceline? Come on, at least for a little bit. So this is what I'm talking about here. Marceline, Missouri. This is the exit off Highway 36 for Marceline, but the town itself is actually miles and miles down the road, which is why they need this huge and kind of awesome sign. Expecting a town and got a pile of rocks, but don't worry, this sign will point you the right way. This is actually one of the most beautiful drives to one of the cutest little towns I've ever been to. Northern rural Missouri. Rural Missouri, that's hard to say. Rural Missouri. Northern rural countryside Missouri is very, very, very beautiful. Almost the first thing you see when you pull into town on the right past the Marceline welcomes you sign, is a red house. That was Walt Disney's boyhood home. Oh, don't worry, we'll get back to that in a second. First, we have somewhere else to visit. Kansas Avenue, Marceline, Missouri. Or as it's better known to Disney fans, the original Main Street, USA. Here you have the old Ripley Park, named for E.P. Ripley, just like the train at Disneyland. Walt and his family and other people in the town would watch the old band concerts here, just like the old Mickey Mouse cartoon. 2 years ago, I was here and did a couple of videos, which you can find on my other channel. Just check in the description for the link. So I've covered Marceline's history before, but it's always worth popping in and taking a look again, and again, and maybe again. Last time I was here, they were telling us that they believe that this corner building here, Zerker's, which I think was a jeweler back in Walt's day, may have inspired Coke Corner on Main Street, mostly because of the similar shape, but also because they had just recently torn down a building and uncovered this wall back here last time. They discovered this old Coca-Cola advertisement. Now it's been repainted and restored since the last time I was here, so it's all brightly colored now, but when I was here before it was all faded and crazy and old school looking. But anyway, that coupled with the fact that that shape had always made them think that, makes them think this is the original Coke Corner. I think it's pretty cool when towns restore stuff like that. It would definitely be cool to see more of that in Southern California. Did I say cruel or cool? Weird. Just checking to see if there's one of those 50-50 light bulbs from my Weird Things video. There is not. There's a light bulb though, so at least that's something. Anyway, yeah, Marceline, Missouri. This is what it's like. Probably a little bit busier on certain days during field trip season, and also it's a little bit busier on weekends and during the summer and stuff like that. But this is what it's like, Marceline, Missouri, on a Monday in the middle of the day. It's not completely empty. I mean, you can't stand in the middle of the street for very long before somebody comes along and runs you over or honks at you. I keep imagining young Walt Disney here, picturing castles at the end of Main Street, USA. it didn't really happen like that, but in my head, that's exactly how it happened. See, even though this was the main drag of the town that Walt Disney grew up at, and the one that inspired him to create Main Street USA at Disneyland, you can see that, like I was saying, the architecture here is not as gaudy, or at least that maybe the gaudy, crazy Victorian style architecture hasn't just survived into the 21st century. You certainly have a lot of the old school brick turn of the century buildings left, but for the most part, other than one or two exceptions over here, most of the decorative like cornices and top part of the buildings, all that old tin, thin decorative stuff is all gone, and gone the way of the buffalo and lost to history, and Marceline just looks kind of like any other typical Midwestern town. See, like, look at this building here and look up there at the architecture, like the, I don't know what you call that, cornices or the little decorative bits up here. Well, if you ever actually go up onto the roofs of one of those old buildings and touch that stuff, it's all, usually back then it was all like tin and like metal and really, really thin. It's not very thick. It's not very sturdy. So I think what may have happened in Marceline is that over the years, with all the crazy, beautiful, soft Missouri weather, probably all this extra Victorian style decorative work that would have been on the tops of all these buildings has either blown off or been taken off, because honestly, it wasn't the fashion after a little while. I mean, even just 30 years after Walt was born would have been the 1930s. Art Deco and all that streamlined modern architecture was coming into vogue, and so they might have just pulled down a lot of that old decorative stuff. But this chiropractor that I pointed out at first, clearly this is an older building, but if you were to take off this top piece right here, just that top piece, what would it look like to you? You know, it would look very plain, very simple. You'd have no way of telling it was one of those old Main Street style buildings. As a matter of fact, you can barely tell, except for that piece, that this building is old, because it's all covered up by modern siding and modern cinder blocks and wood siding in the front. So there's still elements of that old school Walt Disneyland style Main Street here. It's just sort of hidden up and changed with time. When Walt Disney lived here, it was the heyday of the passenger train. Actually, when he came back to visit a lot of times, he still came by passenger train. Marceline was a railroad era town. I keep expecting there to be a castle up there, but no castle. Marceline was a railroad era town, so once the railroad era was done, there were no need for passengers really to stop here or for businesses to be located here that were based around the railroad, and so slowly it sort of scaled itself back to a typical Midwestern agricultural farming style community. There's some cute little shops here and some little touristy stuff because of the Disney visitors, but it's definitely not the growing center of the local population that it was when Walt was here. So it has a different vibe than what you would expect from like the Main Street storyline of Disneyland or Disney World or whatever. Look at this place. I couldn't fit this in my video last time, but where this regional Missouri bank is, this was the site of the old opera house where Walt Disney watched his first live performance of Peter Pan. When he was older, Walt credited watching Peter Pan in the theater on this spot with giving him the inspiration to make the animated Peter Pan. Peter Pan is awesome, and it's a big part of all our lives, but you have to ask yourself honestly, if Walt Disney hadn't done the animated classic version that every child that grows up in America has seen, would we all be as interested in all of the other adaptations? I mean, we don't watch a lot of plays in the United States of America, especially in modern times, like some, a little bit. I mean, places like New York and stuff like that, obviously, but for the most part, come on, how many plays have you seen this year? So would we have known about Peter Pan? Would we have had so many different kind of movie adaptations? Would Hook exist? I don't think so. Here's the Uptown Theater where Walt Disney and Roy Disney came back and famously premiered The Great Locomotive Chase here on July 4th, 1956, I think. Just a year after Disneyland, Walt and Roy right here taking people's tickets, bringing them inside to see the Great Locomotive Chase. Very fitting, since Walt Disney fell in love with trains here, and obviously it was his boyhood hometown and the place where he would have seen his first movies. Looks like they're still working on restoring this place, but it's in a lot better shape than the last time I was here, judging by the front. The front last time was covered with all kinds of scaffolding and crazy stuff. One of these days, I'm actually gonna make it to this town on a day where there's someone to let me into this place. Anyway, pretty crazy. This is the very street where Walt Disney would have watched the horse and buggy age turn into the automobile age, and this is where all the little shops were in town, that he would come into town with his folks and be like, here we are in the big city. Wow. As a Disney fan, but much more importantly as a Walt Disney fan, I really like coming here. If you want more historical information on Marceline, I would definitely check out the other video that I did here before. This is mostly just me revisiting it because I happen to be passing through. And I highly recommend that if you yourself are coming to Marceline, you actually read a book about Walt Disney before you get here, or at least the early chapters covering Marceline. I always recommend that because a lot of people will visit a place and go, oh, this looks pretty neat, and then they'll go Google it later, or they'll look up information about it and go, oh, I didn't realize, you know, blah, 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 blah. But if you actually take the time to read a book about the place you're going to, it's going to give you a much better sense, at least if the writer's any good, of what, like in this case with Walt Disney, of what it was like when Walt was here, and the energy that was in the town, and how excited everybody was, and stuff like that. So it'll mean a lot more to you if you actually just, you know, spend 20 minutes the night before just reading a little bit about the place. All right, as much as I love the original Main Street USA, which is actually called Kansas Avenue, just a little side note there, I have to get off Main Street and see if I can make it to Walt's Boyhood Hometown Museum over there in the old train depot, both before the rain comes back and also before I explode because I really have to go pee. I finally made it back to the Walt Disney Hometown Museum, Marceline, Missouri. They built it in the old train station that Walt Disney himself actually visited when he used to come back to the town. This place is so cool. They got Walt Disney's old school desk and a lot of artifacts from his family. Oh, new entry door on the west side. Okay, well, that's okay. Things aren't going to change that much since the first time I came here, but it is interesting. They got a new entrance over here. Oh wow, and new signage. That's awesome. Oh, this is great. They got a new gift shop and what the? Oh no. Oh no. Closed on Monday. But today's Monday. That means it's closed. 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 Why? Why, Walt's ghost? Why would you do this to me? Not literally at all, but this is the worst thing that's ever happened in the history of the world. But not literally, but kind of. See, for you guys at home, this is fine because you can just click on my other video and see what's inside of this place. But for me, I came all this way today and I really have to go to the bathroom. For real, I have to pee. Well, you get what you get and you don't throw a fit. Sometimes that's the way the cookie crumbles. It just is what it is. See, most museums are closed on Mondays, and I didn't even think about the fact that it might be closed, but it is a super awesome museum. They do have a lot of artifacts in here from Walt's family, a lot of information about the Disney family beyond just Walt. Like, have you ever heard about Walt's brother Ray Disney, who sells insurance? You might want to look into it. He can get you fire insurance, earthquake insurance, tornado insurance. You want insurance, any kind of insurance? Then believe me, you're gonna want to call Ray Disney. He's the brother of Walt, you know, the guy that did the Tinkerbell thing and stuff, but he can get you insurance, like really good insurance, probably. Yeah, dang. Bummer that the museum was closed. But let's not forget that back towards the highway was the old Disney farmhouse. This was once old Elias Disney's farm, and Walt Disney spent at least the most memorable and most beloved years of his childhood right here in this house. They don't make a huge deal out of the house in town because it is actually a private residence. But I met the lady that lives in the house because she was working at the Walt Disney Family Museum last time when Tyler and I were here, and she was really nice. And I think it's really cool and nice that they have put a little sort of gravel parking area and they let people come up and take pictures, and they put the sign here. Because if you think about it, they don't have to do any of that at all. The house has obviously been added to and structurally changed over the years. So if you look at the old photographs of like Walt and his sister Ruth just chilling on the porch right over there or doing whatever, it's not like immediately obvious like, oh, that's the same house. But it is in fact the same house. It's funny because it looks so big from the side, but from the front you can really tell that the left-hand part, the old part of the house, is pretty small, pretty modest. This was the house that Walt Disney famously painted the side of it with a bunch of tar, like being all creative and artistic and stuff. And as the sign says, Walt remembered, I wasn't thanked by the family for my efforts. I feel you, Walt. This one time I had these oil pastels, and my brother and I took the oil pastels and drew lines on the carpet in our bedroom, like this section's yours and this section is mine. And then we realized, well, I need to get over here, you need to get over here. So then we drew more sections and more sections, and then we took the little oil pastel things and colored in the sections so that it would be more beautiful. It looked like the side of the Partridge Family bus. And my mom and dad, they didn't thank me either, Walt, so ooh. Yeah, pretty amazing. Walt Disney grew up right here. Well, we may not be allowed to visit inside the house, but there is somewhere else we can visit, because all of this land around the house used to be old Elias Disney's farm. In the case of a lot of famous people, we know kind of roughly where they lived, roughly what they liked. Oh, they may have gone here, they may have sat in this booth in this old bar or whatever. But in Walt Disney's case, we know exactly where he used to hang out as a little kid, because he came back here in the 50s and showed everybody. And according to Walt Disney, one of his favorite places ever was right back here on the old farm. If you saw my old videos, you know I'm talking about Walt's Dreaming Tree and Barn, and it's back here on the old farm. This is one of the most famous Disney fan pilgrimage sites probably in the world, I guess. I tell the whole story in much more detail in the other video I filmed here before, but the long story short is basically there was this big tree here, this one big fine tree that would shade Walt Disney on those hot summer days. He would sit under it and draw. He had all kinds of childhood memories playing under it with his sister Ruth and everything. And when he came back here in the 50s with his brother Roy, he pointed out the tree to people. He stood under the tree and let people take pictures of him. Well, that tree has since fallen down into nothing. Last time I was here, there was still some of the original Walt Disney Dreaming Tree that was still upright and, you know, in position. Now they've built this weird little section of fence around it to, I guess, prevent us from sitting on the old dreaming stump that's left. But it's pretty cool that there's at least a piece of the old stump of the tree where this is the spot that Walt Disney sat and all that kind of stuff. And I guess the fence is a good idea because it stops people from, I don't know what, maybe accidentally taking some of it away as firewood, I guess, probably. Luckily, like I pointed out last time, they have a seedling that comes from the original Dreaming Tree. So this right here is the son of the Dreaming Tree. They planted the son of the Dreaming Tree when they knew the original was going bye-bye, and I'm pretty sure they used water from the rivers of America and soil from the Magic Kingdom in Florida to do it. So that right there is like the ultimate Disney tree, basically just a few feet from where Walt Disney himself actually sat and reminisced and all that stuff. They should probably put like a stone there or something. Does the actual tree itself matter? Does the actual wood of the tree matter? Or is it important to have a place to go to put your feet at where you can say, Walt Disney stood on this spot. This is roughly what he would have seen, the type of environment. This was the place where dreams were born, where millions and millions of people's childhood and lives were influenced by the things that this man would later go on to create or inspire being created or help being created or whatever it is. Like, that's what really matters here. It's not so much Walt's childhood that matters, it's your childhood and my childhood. It's all those hours that we spent watching old Disney movies on VHS tapes and dreaming. It's about our dreams, not necessarily just about Walt's dreams. You can hear the trains coming through the outside of town, much like Walt Disney would have heard, only obviously he would have heard steam whistles. All right, now speaking of history and changes to history, and does it really matter if it's the actual original thing or not, we have something amazing back here, which is this, the replica of old Elias Disney's barn. Walter Elias Disney, the boy, hung out in this very barn, only he kind of didn't. It's a little confusing, and I talked about this in the other video I shot, but basically the story is that in 1949, they did the movie So Dear to My Heart, and Walt Disney's memories of his dad's barn here on the farm in Marceline inspired the look and the design of that barn. He showed them, oh, it's gotta be like this, and it's gotta be like that, and the other thing. He liked the barn in the movie so much that when he went to build his backyard railroad in Beverly Hills, he had a barn designed just like it so that he could operate his little steam trains and stuff in it and all the things like that. So then here on the Disney farm in Marceline, they've actually used the blueprints, I'm pretty sure, from that barn that Walt Disney had in his backyard at home that was based off the movie barn that was based off his childhood memories of this place. And anyway, long story short, this isn't the original barn here, but it's the way that Walt remembered the barn to have been sorta on the thing, but it's kind of like from a movie, but it's also kind of like where Walt did his steam trains, which is kind of how he got the idea for Disney. It's complicated, but basically it's a barn and it's Walt's, sorta. All right, let's check out the inside. Sheesh. Very cleverly, the brains behind the barn have allowed people to leave messages and inscriptions to Walt and to each other, I guess. inside of the barn. This is sort of the Disney version of the wall at Graceland where people write messages to Elvis. They completed this replica barn in 2001 on the occasion of Walt Disney's, or what would have been Walt Disney's 100th birthday. So it's been here for 15 years like this, and I don't know if you can really tell, but as you can see, it's not 100% filled up in every little crack and cranny with signatures, so it doesn't get the millions of visitors that Disneyland or Magic Kingdom would get. Can you imagine if they let you do this on a wall at Disneyland? Just for one day, it would be black with ink, just covered. But there are a heck of a lot of signatures in here, including a lot up on the roof. Now my signature is in this barn along with my friend Tyler, and my friend Adam the Woo even has a signature in here. I wish I could tell you that this Justin up in the rafters was my signature, but it's definitely, I'm scared of heights. I actually can't remember where the heck my signature is. I kind of feel like it was somewhere near one of these windows, but I don't remember for sure. I don't know where my name is. There is a super S here though. Remember those? I drew the super S. Nailed it. Dr. Blue Toad was here, which is okay. Other than just the typical name and date or the, you know, A plus L equals love or whatever in here, the most common thing I see, the most common message in here I see over and over just says thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Walt. Thank you, Walt. Thank you. Just look at these messages. Look at that one there. Thanks for changing the world. Honestly, it makes me have actual tears in my eyes just thinking about the fact that this is the place where Walt Disney used to draw silly little drawings and stuff like that. I'm sure his dad got angry with him once or twice, like, come and help me with the farm stuff and stop doodling over there, kid. Walt Disney did not achieve the things that he achieved by having a quote-unquote normal job. As a matter of fact, Walt Disney failed at a lot of things, even had failed companies. Actually, the Walt Disney Company that we know today wasn't even super ultra profitable until after Mary Poppins. There are a lot of cynical, negative people in the world today that if they knew Walt and Walt was growing up in their neighborhood today, they'd say, look at you, you loser. All you do is talk about fairy tales and fantasy kingdoms and castles and things and draw weird cartoon pictures. It's not a real job. Go work at the gravel factory, Walt. But thank God he didn't listen to any of those people that he had in his life. Thank God he kept pursuing all of his dreams. And it's honestly like really touching to see. Sorry, one of these farm ducks is spitting in my eye and the other one's getting sweaty with respect, you know, for sympathy. No, it's really touching and inspiring to see how many people care, not just about the movies or about Mickey Mouse, but about the man himself. Sure, Walt Disney made money from the stuff he did. Obviously, he got his paycheck and he had his house and stuff at the end of the day. So that's one motivation for what he was doing. But I think there's two types of motivation for creative people other than like money, obviously, and earning a living. There's the people who really want the fame and attention and glory, like, yes, I am magnificent. And then there's the people who really want to create something that will hopefully inspire other people or make other people feel better or distract them from something bad in their lives and make them feel good or give them something wholesome and good to look forward to. And I really believe, honestly, having done the research and walked in the man's footsteps in a lot of places, I really believe that that was the kind of person that Walt Disney was. All those weird internet rumors about Walt and all the negative stuff, none of that stuff is true at all. I mean, he was hardly a saint or a god or anything like that. I mean, I've met people that met the man. He was just a person, but at the same time, he did create all these things and he did inspire the creation of all this different stuff that affected a lot of people. And it means a lot to me, and it's really inspiring and touching to see that it means a lot to other people too. All right, enough with the mushy stuff. I can't find my name. It's getting super frustrating. There's only one thing to do.
Come out to Marceline and see if you can spot it.
Okay. It's over by these back 3 windows here, above the 2 in between. There it is. There it is. I know it's kind of backlit from the sun, but there it is. There's my signature from the last visit. And look, my friend Adam's signature is still up there too. Adam the Woo? I feel like it's okay to leave one more that's a little easier to find. Come on, I came out here twice, years apart. It's legit, right? This time I'm gonna sign it right above the door here, so I'll actually remember where the heck it is. Okay, here it is, the new inscription. Justin Scard and the Sometimes Mob. That's you guys. Thanks, Walt. That's for Walt. All right, make sure you go watch my last video if you want a little more backstory on the old barn here. Think about this. No security cameras out here, no fence, no one to protect it, no guards or anything like that. And look in what amazing shape this place is. Look how beautiful and well maintained it is. This is what I love so much about Disney fans, and especially Walt Disney fans. They're like some of the best people on earth. Like, can you imagine if there was an unguarded barn like this on like Elvis's house or J-Lo's property or something like that? There'd be people camping in here and like doing all kinds of bad stuff. But Disney people are a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, a little bit more wholesome. And the reason for that is because of Walt Disney himself being a clean, kind of a wholesome guy. Like, he wasn't probably a complete and total prude or anything, but he just really was that wholesome guy that really wanted to represent middle America values. And it was in this town, in Marceline, and his memories of living in that house here and living on this property and being in his dad's old barn and interacting with the neighbors and all that stuff. It was this place that fundamentally shaped the way that Walt Disney thought about American values and how people should treat each other, and all of that stuff, all of those values and all those ideals are what inspired and bled into all the work that he created. Like I said, that's what makes this place important. It's not exactly just Walt Disney and how he was inspired. It's about how all that work that he created, or more accurately in a lot of cases, the work that people under him created with his guidance, how it affected us and how that's going to affect our kids and how it's going to affect our work in the world and how that affects other people. So it just keeps going and going and going. Just think of how much that ideal American life, that farm life and small town living and all that kind of stuff, just think about how much that was influenced by all the Disney films. You know, that Disney view of America that a lot of people say mockingly or sarcastically, like, oh, you got that Disney view of things, that Disney view of America. I, for one, really love that view of America. Maybe that America never existed. Maybe it never was perfect like that. It was never the super small town ideal on the front porch with you. But I would like to think that it can exist somehow still again. I would like to think that it did exist once. And I still think that it's a good ideal to aim for and shoot for. And I don't think it's a bad thing to be influenced that way, like that kind of wholesome, positive way. That's one of the big reasons that I really like to escape the confines of Southern California or any big city for a while and come out on road trips like this, because I like to escape the snark. I like to escape the negativity. I like to escape the like, oh, we're so cool, the kind of the rat race of everything. It's really easy to get caught up in what kind of clothes do you own, and this person said this bad thing about you, and oh, we gotta go here and here to be cool. So-and-so's got this kind of car, and so-and-so lives in this type of house, and they go to this neighborhood, and they went to this fashionable place. And especially in an election year, it's easy to get caught up with like online fighting and contentiousness and people being all snarky and fighting each other over what America means. Honestly, I very consciously and very specifically and intentionally steer clear from a lot of that stuff and try to make my videos be a thing that's a break from those things. But it can be hard for even me to stay positive and stay out of that kind of stuff and make those type of videos. So it's nice to come and have a break, and it's inspirational to me, not just to see where like one of my heroes dreamed his dreams that actually did come true. He went somewhere and made it with art and different stuff, not the way he expected at first. He himself wasn't that great of an illustrator or anything, but he took loving to draw pictures here on this farm to this whole epic level that's affected millions, maybe billions of people. One little boy resting in the shade of a tree out here on his father's farm, dreaming. And then those dreams have affected the dreams of millions. That is inspiring. As beautiful as Walt's barn is, I gotta be going now. Kind of awesome that one of Walt Disney's happy places is really becoming one of mine. Really grateful that I got a chance to come back here. And thank you guys for coming here with me. You didn't have to come, but I'm glad you did. Now I've been here when it's blisteringly hot, and I've been here when it's kind of cold and wet and rainy, and I can't help it. I love it. I mean, I know it's kind of the middle of nowhere and everything, Marceline and just northern Missouri like this, but honestly, it's so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, and I highly recommend, if you ever get the chance, if you're ever in Kansas City or St. Louis or anything like that, to come here. I highly recommend it. Beautiful. So long, dreaming tree. So long, Marceline. By the way, what are these? What makes this? What makes these holes and pushes out the mud like that, huh? It always looks like some kind of cow poop, but it's not. It's some sort of home in there. Whose home is this? Whose home is this? this? You don't think, I mean, it would be a pretty big one, but you don't think that could be a mouse hole, do you? Do you think, is it possible? Was this Mickey Mouse's original hole? Do you think Mickey Mouse's dad had a farm too? Do you think Mickey Mouse grew up here with Walt Disney? I bet he did. Mickey Mouse's hole. Everyone, come, we need to get a sign here. We need to build a hotel and a casino. It's Mickey Mouse's original hole. Wow, but wait, if we build a casino, everyone will know. Don't tell anyone. It's our little secret. Our little secret. Oh my gosh. I made it. I actually made it. We're back in Hannibal, Missouri. This is awesome. I plan on spending at least 2 days here, so there's plenty of time to explore Hannibal, but even before I check into my hotel, there's a couple things I just have to look at. First of all, Mark Twain's Boyhood Home. Man, it's been a minute since I was here. Have you guys ever seen my video from this place, from Mark Twain's Boyhood Home? I always, my entire life, dreamed of coming to this house and seeing this place, for real. My dream of coming here finally came true a couple of years ago when I was here on the very last day of a failed tour with my band. I was supposed to go on this big tour and it didn't work out, and the very last day we were here, we stopped by, we toured the museum, then had to turn the van around and head back home to California. And then a couple of years later, my marriage was falling apart. I had just started doing these videos, and my friend Tyler and I decided to escape Southern California and come here to film some of this stuff, not only just to escape the crazy drama and the stress that I was going through at home, but also because I like Mark Twain. It was kind of like a victory, like after the whole failure of the tour thing that we were on, come here and like make something good out of the place that I obviously have always wanted to go to my entire life. Literally the night I was editing this video down and almost done with the video that I made about this place, that was the night that I found out that my ex was cheating on me. All this crazy stuff had to happen, and it was like so Hannibal has been involved in a couple of like pivotal, kind of terrible moments in my life for me. But I'm the hugest Mark Twain fan. I even have a tattoo on my arm to prove it. See? I grew up reading Tom Sawyer and Huckleberry Finn, both of which are based in the fictional towns of St. Petersburg, which was based off this real life town of Hannibal. So I have to come just... This is the first stop before the checking in the hotel, and then the second stop, of course, the father of waters, the Mississippi River. It's the mighty freaking Mississippi. I don't think there's a sign that says the mighty freaking Mississippi, but it's the mighty Mississippi. Wow, pretty crazy. So far I've driven from the Pacific Ocean to the mighty Mississippi River all by myself. I mean, I started in Laguna Beach, and now I'm looking at the Mark Twain Memorial Bridge. Over there is Illinois. This side, of course, is Missouri, Hannibal, Missouri over here, and then Illinois. It's just crazy. As I mentioned, I've traveled a lot in my life, but it was always with a band or with a group or with another person or whatever, and now I've started going to foreign countries by myself, Europe by myself, and now I just drove across half a continent by myself. I'm nobody, you guys. I'm just some kid from Anaheim with attention deficit disorder really bad that not a lot of people understand. I'm weirdly creative and very emotional and kind of sensitive and tender little guy, and I'm a little bit nerdy and into things that other people aren't into, I guess, on some levels. And I'm really nerdy about some things like Mark Twain and Star Wars and just weird stuff. But I mean, I'm nobody special. If I can do something like this, so can you. There's always people leaving these comments, man, I could never drive across the country all by myself, or I could never do this, I could never do that. Don't say you can never do something. The second that you say you can never do something, then you're guaranteeing that you're right, that you can never do something. There's that old saying that the man who says he can do something and the man who says he can't do something, both are usually right. So don't sell yourself short. If I can drive halfway across the country to the mighty Mississippi by myself, so can you. I mean, maybe not literally if you don't have a driver's license or you're legally blind or something of that nature, but just as a metaphor for other things. You can do it. I'm gonna talk a lot more about the Mississippi River and Mark Twain and the town of Hannibal, Missouri when we come back. For now, I'm gonna sleep off basically 2,000 miles of travel from the Pacific Ocean to the mighty Mississippi River. I'm gonna go to the grocery store, get a little food, go back to the hotel, edit this video, maybe read some Mark Twain books. I'm going to call my mom because I love her, and also call other people I love. By the way, my mom's family's from Missouri, so that's weird. In a weird way, I'm home. Anyway, I'm gonna rest for about 24 hours and relax and try to sleep off some of the miles that I've driven and actually sleep in. But we did it, guys. It's not just me. We did it. You were with me the whole time. This time, Mom, that's you. We made it.
We've quite literally done our duty. And now we can go home and sleep.
Wow. TheFastLifePartnerSpreadshirt.com. Links to those other videos down below in the description. Patreon.com/JustinScard. Get at me on Twitter, Justin Scard. Instagram, Live Fast, Live Poor, all that other crap. We did it. Awesome. I love you guys. Seriously, you're awesome. And I'll see you again for another adventure, assuming you subscribed. All right, bye-bye. looking at the Mississippi River, bro. I'm
Hannibal, Missouri.
Hannibal, Missouri. I'm on my way.